Good evening from the Philippines. Good afternoon to those in Italy and Central European time, and everybody else in the middle of the world. And good morning to those in the earlier part of the world with Douglas and everybody else, Chloe and everybody here. Good morning to you all, and good day to anybody who's here in this call right now. And so my name is Jim, and I'm working closely with World Food Farm, specifically in the Youth Action Assembly. And I'm very happy and privileged to be here with the Foodicons launch. This is a very exciting session that's up for you guys. So to introduce quickly, just an overview of what the Foodicons is. Foodicons is a global challenge sponsored by Adobe, the Lexicon, AIGA, and the Noun Project to create a visual language of food. An iconographic language can help communicate more universally across borders, languages, and backgrounds. Farmers, food producers, retailers, and consumers will be able to use the open source icons as a shared language to depict everything from basic elements like water and peanuts to more complex concepts like no-till farming and buffer strips. Today, we'll share how designers have come together to design these icons in collaboration with food experts from around the world and showcase examples of how they can be used. Finally, learn how you can join us in creating this visual language of food in a new partnership between Foodicons and the World Food Forum. And with that, we're going to have a video just to introduce the Foodicons.
If you're going to create a truly global food culture where everyone is represented, the first thing you probably have to do is come up with a language that is shared. It's probably not going to be words. It's probably going to be images, icons.
Foodicons is a way of overcoming at least partially linguistic and geographic barriers. It's an ambitious project meant to serve people throughout and across the food system, from consumers to professionals of all kinds.
What we decided to do was draft designers and food system experts from all over the world to join us in that journey, to create a truly universal language that can be shared by everybody in our food systems.
I really like this double mission here.
If I speak Hindi, that's my first language, and you speak English, even if you see one particular icon, we are literate in that same language.
Yo creo que es súper relevante e importante tener una alternativa más de un lenguaje, más allá del escrito o del hablado, y por eso yo creo que los iconos son una parte importante de la cultura actual.
Foodicons has a process where artists and designers create icons, but then go through a series of steps where they receive feedback from design experts, but also food system experts.
And these designers have done a terrific job trying to interpret it in a way that is both simple, but yet informative.
Not only are we crowdsourcing these icons from people all over the world, but they're all going to be open source. There's going to be no limitations on anyone in the world using them for essentially any kind of practice.
I think timing is everything. And I think this is that moment where people want to be part of something bigger than themselves and want to contribute to something that has a high degree of utility.
It's really important to me to work for something greater than just myself, my country, or my culture, and be certain what we do here bring values for everybody in the world.
It's clear that there's a visual language evolving that is teaching us how all these terms can relate to each other. And the most exciting part of this project has yet to happen, and that's seeing how people all over the world use them. We expect to see uses we haven't even imagined as people communicate how they work and eat to all kinds of stakeholders.
Our mission at the World Food Forum is to support and empower the next generation to create a better food future for the world. And to do that, we need a language that all people can use, a visual language like this.
All right, welcome to the launch of the Foodicons, and this is an absolutely exciting initiative of different stakeholders coming together. In fact, the Youth Action Assembly has already used some of the Foodicons in the compendium that we've written over the past 2 months, and we've presented in the past 2 days. And so some of the Foodicons were launched, seen there already. So without further ado, let me hand over the floor to the chief economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. And prior to joining FAO, he served in other intergovernmental organizations, such as an executive director for World Bank Group, spanning several Latin American countries, and also as lead for the International Food Policy Research Institute's Division on Markets, Trade, and Institutions. I've come to know Maximo as the chair of the FAO Youth Committee and the advisory board for the World Food Forum, of which the Youth Action Assembly has been working closely with. And without further ado, Maximo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Leandro, and thank you all for being here. Several months ago, I think, several now, I met Douglas, more than a year, when the summit started, and I started to learn a lot, many things they were doing with his team, and I was really impressed, and we started working together in many topics. But these food icons, which they have been working so much, and which now we are launching here with the youth group, with the World Food Forum, I think it's something amazing. It's something completely different, and it's something that for me brings a solution to a huge problem that we face. Always, I have been working on digital technologies for most of my life, but I always talk about the 3 C's: connectivity, content, and capabilities. So connectivity are cables and prices. We can resolve that problem. There is no issue, and we are trying to push with many initiatives with ITU to trying to resolve the connectivity problem. There is a price tag for that. We can do it. Content also, there is science, there is evidence that we can work. But capabilities of our rural people, which are facing significant challenges of illiteracy, is something that will take generations to resolve. And here is when I think food icons, this visual language, can change completely the way we see this problem. Because through the food icons and for this new language, which is based on crowdsourcing, but much more than that, we can revolutionize and resolve this huge challenge of capabilities that we have. So I really believe this initiative can really give us a huge push in the transformation we need to use and to do now, using digital technologies, using automation. And it can resolve a major challenge that we have of capabilities, which will have taken us generations to resolve. And the beauty of it is it's not just a drawing, it's not just an image which reflects a content, but it has a content behind, but also has science behind, which is what really makes it a real language, a real visual language. And for FAO, that's great. You know, we handle Codex Alimentarius, we handle all these certification mechanisms. We do this. So for us to be able to link in the science part, to keep improving the food icons and to keep pushing for this visual language is a huge thing. And I am so happy that the World Food Forum and the youth immediately took this up and immediately understood the power of this. I am even more happy that you're using it in your compendium. So thank you very much for this. I won't take longer, but please see of this as a huge transformation. What we were calling in the summit game changers. For me, this is a real game changer. If we do it, if we keep expanding it, we keep doing the crowdsourcing, as the video showed, there is enormous potential that we need to keep empowering. Thank you very much. I'm back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Maximo. And definitely, this is a very exciting initiative with stakeholders coming together with the World Food Forum, bring it forward. And now we want to know more about the Foodicons, how they came to be, and no better people to give that explanation and elaboration other than the people behind it, Nathan and Douglas. And first off with Nathan. Nathan is a serial entrepreneur, a business strategist, and an education innovator, an author, and a speaker. He's a serial entrepreneur in various technology and strategic sectors, and he has written over 10 books, started more than 6 companies, and founded the groundbreaking design MBA program. He's focused on building new tools for strategy and communication and leads the Foodicons Challenge, an initiative for building a global open source iconographic system for food systems. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here, Jim. And I think actually the first person to talk should be Douglas, because he started this entire project. I got a call about 2 years ago now to come on board to this project and help it to be realized. Douglas is the one that instigated all of it, because he was in the midst of so many overlapping food systems and saw the need for this new global visual language.
So let me call on Douglas, who's also an award-winning information architect, filmmaker, photographer, and writer. And in the past days that I've come to know him, you could feel that passion for this Foodicons just oozing out of him. So Douglas, go ahead and just spread that love and energy for the Foodicons with everybody.
There are over 190 nations that comprise the membership of FAO. Each of these nations have multiple cultures within them. Food defines those cultures. And yet we don't have a universal language that can bind and find the universality that exists that can bring us together. Food can be that glue culturally, but we need to have a way to communicate that crosses physical boundaries and borders and language boundaries and borders. To date, there really hasn't been an attempt to do that. And what we thought to do was to create a mechanism that could bring people together, not only in a shared language, but also to raise their literacy. We run an accelerator program called Green, Brown, Blue at my organization, which is called the Lexicon. And that accelerator brings together experts from all over the world to look at great challenges facing our food systems. And we said, you know, could we create this universal language? Of course, for us, there was really nobody better than Nathan to lead that, given his decades of expertise in design and also his decades of expertise in the food space. So he was one of those unique people that wore 2 hats. What we did was we brought together a series of food system experts, a series of designers, and said, how can we create this one language? And then we, afterwards, Nathan took this to Adobe. And a design team at Adobe said, we can create a generalized framework that will allow people to follow that framework and have an icon that will look exactly the same, whether it was done by one hand or many hands. From that point, we made the decision that, you know, Nathan felt this could be a global challenge and it could be something that the world could take part in. And I've been amazed at what Nathan has put together over the past year. And Nathan, why don't you share how you put together the challenge and how it's manifested itself over the past, Nathan, it's only 8 or 9 months, if you can believe that. Yeah.
Really, yeah, it's true. Thank you, Douglas. I think the first challenge started in January of this year, and already we have over 600 icons built. They're all available today from the foodicons.org website, in fact, and we have more in the works. We knew that no one was going to fund a project this big. This may, in fact, be the biggest design project in the world, at least certainly in recent history. We knew that it was a lot of work, and that the only real way to build a global language is to use designers from all over the world and get their input and perspective. And we knew we were going to have to crowdsource it if we wanted it to happen. So we looked at a bunch of different alternatives about how to run a challenge of this size. and of this type, and decided that the tools that were accessible out there in the world, namely Google Drive, for instance, we could build an entire system to run these challenges, given the tools that were available globally to people essentially all over the world. So we built a system within Google Drive to manage a design process. And for those of you who may not be familiar, a typical design process, one of the most important pieces of that is the idea of critique. And it's an essential part of creating anything and making it better and having multiple perspectives on it in order to make something as great as it can be. So we built into a process and built it into our system so that there would be 3 rounds of critique for all of the challenges. And those critiques were coming from 2 different groups, a set of designers, very experienced icon designers in particular. So that was our design council, and a set of food experts. So that was sort of our food judges. And at every point in these 3 cycles, the designers would get input from food experts about the things that they were sketching and designing as icons, as well as design expertise and design critique from the designers. So these 2 forces helped create, helped improve the quality of what we were able to create. So we've run 4 different challenges. We have a challenge open right now. And as I said, there's 600 icons in the system.
That's amazing. That's amazing work. And it's really exciting to see how this is going to move forward. And so to go further into that and taking off from what Nathan was just talking about the design and also the food systems, we're going to jump in and break those into 2. And we're going to start off with the food systems experts and like the need for a shared language. And to know more about that, we have 2 of our food experts here with us. And I'm going to start off with Robin Metcalf, who's a lecturer and professor of instruction in the College of Natural Sciences at the University of Texas at Austin. She's an author, film producer, and researcher who explores our global food system. She was the founder and director of Food Plus City, an innovative project that explored the future of our food system, and produced a food startup challenge in Austin, Texas. And she's written lots of books on food, and she has this really credibility towards food systems. So Robin is one of our food systems experts. And we have Romano Di Vivo, who is also a dedicated and resourceful leader with 20 years of global experience in sustainability, public policy, communications, and in-depth knowledge of governance, international law, and market dynamics. He brings a mature, profound grasp of the agribusiness sector and multi-stakeholder partnerships. And currently, he coordinates the 2nd International Congress on Agribiodiversity on behalf of CGIAR. All right, so I'm going to jump into questions for both of our experts who are here right now. And just to know more about the process of at least you coming in. And first of all, to Robin, the question is, what is one of the biggest challenges facing our supply chains?
Well, thank you. And thank you, Jim. And thank you also to both Nathan and Douglas for making this all happen, because it really takes that kind of leadership to pull it all together. This food supply chain has been invisible to most everybody, really up to this point. This is as Douglas pointed out in the video, this is its moment to be something that we can really all engage in. There's really a lack of transparency. People really know about what's going on at the table much more these days, and also what's going on in the ground, but very little about what goes on in between. And unless we can have a conversation where we can really talk across the whole landscape of the food system, we're never really going to reach a point where we really can solve all the friction points and the key problems in the food system. So I think this project will really open the the gates to a much broader and much more textured conversation about the food system. And it's in much need of attention. So this is a great moment.
Thank you. That's a succinct description of what needs to be addressed across supply chains, especially food systems. And now over to Romano. How do we use food icons, or how can food icons be used to explain something as complex as agrobiodiversity?
Thanks, Jim. I mean, it's a fantastic question, because clearly I came here as a practitioner. So in the Second International Agrobiodiversity Congress, we try to explain agrobiodiversity implications for consumption, production, and conservation. And clearly, I mean, we involve experts, but also practitioners, policymakers, and even consumers. So it's very difficult to find the right words to explain all the different concepts. And also sometimes words are a little bit taken hostage of a number of political positions, and it's very difficult to find the right compromise when you are writing a declaration, or when you are trying to agree on a common position with several different stakeholders. So to have an icon that explains the practice, that shows the next level, that tells everybody what it means, the implications, the impact, this is a fantastic way of communicating, and also bridging from science to policy, to consumers. And this is really powerful. I never really experienced something so exciting. And I'm very, really grateful to Douglas and Nathan for this great opportunity of using their icons in our Congress.
Thank you for that elaboration. And I think at this point, I also want to do a quick follow-up on maybe each one of you very quickly before we go on to the next segment. And going back to Robin about the, across food supply chains and having this kind of visual language, in your years of expertise, or at least your experience, is this something that could definitely change consumer awareness? As we talk about supply chains, it's really in between from the production to consumption, but when it gets down to the line of consumption, is it something that could really enhance that understanding through the transparency of a language across what the issues are, how food is being produced, and all of these things? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm hopeful. I think this is a tool that people haven't had up to this point to sort of bridge differences, because as we already mentioned, food is a deeply cultural and emotional conversation, and people have been sort of standing over in their corners, defending their own points of view, and really haven't been able to cross the barriers into a really shared conversation. So I'm hopeful. Here at the University of Texas, we're teaching a course called Global Food Systems Design, and I look forward to introducing this language to the students. And so I think beginning there is a bright light in the possibilities of reaching consumer awareness. So very optimistic.
Lovely. That's lovely to hear. And just thinking about the potential is immense. Going to Romano, talking about agrobiodiversity being explained through food icons, and something when we talk about food production systems, sometimes it can be very complex for people to grasp over just a cup of coffee, perhaps. But people have also different beliefs in coming into the way they produce their food. And so how do you think visual language like this can also be a way to bridge between people's beliefs and understanding of what food production systems are fit for their context?
Absolutely. I think we are talking about food systems transformation. And clearly a transformation implies collaboration from all stakeholders. And clearly they need to understand immediately, visualize immediately what is the idea. And clearly, if we align production to certain values, to the values of the SDGs, I mean, we still need then to align consumption to the same values and make sure that things can really work together. So icons, for the very first time, I believe, are giving this sort of opportunity. So it's really a common language. And I mean, we know how a common language can facilitate these things. I mean, we are all speaking English now in this forum, and this is a very good way to be effective. In agrobiodiversity, because of the complexity, and because we are touching really very specific activities that are part of our everyday life, I mean, to have the icons, it's even more powerful. And I fully agree on what Robin said. I mean, we can remove the barriers. We can really bridge from positions to other positions and make sure that people have a better understanding and a common understanding of what we mean.
Absolutely. Wow. Amazing. Thank you very much, Robin and Romano, for bringing that insight into the food systems aspect that goes into these icons. And so now, moving and shifting from that perspective of the food icons, going now into the design process, let me now bring back to the floor and hand it over to Nathan, who will talk about the process of developing these food icons. So Nathan, over to you, and for Douglas together to work together on that. Go ahead, Nathan, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you, Jim. I wanted to step people through how the Foodicons design system works. A little bit about how designers design the icons themselves, and then show some of the work, because that's why we're here. We also have one of our star designers online, and Ellie, who's one of our volunteers, who's just been incredible. She's an incredible designer here in San Francisco. Will interview Viksha about her process as well. This is a really quick overview of how we've helped build a system to allow designers all over the world to design within a system, so that when they submit their final icons, they all work as a family, which is one of the essential pieces of an iconographic system. So we've asked designers to select, when they register for the challenge, they get a set of terms. These terms are in a family. If they absolutely hate their terms, they can contact us and get a new set. We've only ever had that once, though. And then they're off to sketch for a few weeks. They upload their sketches to workbooks. Everyone is given a personal workbook. And then we take all of the work and copy it off into judging workbooks, so that our design and food experts can overlay their critique about the sketches. We build we provide the designers with icon templates and libraries of common elements, which I'll show you in a second. We have an incredible set of design guidelines. And then when they get this feedback, they then take off on the design round, which is only 2 weeks long. They submit their designs, and then they get more critique over a week. And then they have one final week of refinement of their design. So an entire challenge really takes place in just about a month and a half, maybe a little bit longer, which is not a lot of time, especially because some of these terms are, as you all know, in the food system, fairly abstract and complex. We were really fortunate early on to catch the attention of Adobe, and specifically their global icon design team. And so 2 of their designers, Nayani D'Souza Hablitzel and Isabel Hamlin, built the design guidelines for the system. It's an incredibly versatile set of design tools and design attributes, so that when you have 150, 250 designers working independently, when their work comes together, it fits as a system. And so they developed all of the guidelines here. And I'm stepping through some of these. You can see these all on the Foodicon site. They specified things like corner radiuses and how to use negative and positive space. And then they built a icon template. So all of our designers, even though They didn't have to work in Adobe Illustrator, for instance. They could download an icon template with a lot of these attributes built in. They also built this fantastic library of elements, including modifiers. And I'll get to that in a second, because the modifiers over time became part of this evolving language. How the modifiers apply to an icon really slightly changes the meaning and allowed us to create an extensive system. We also, in this library, have lots of common elements. Certainly the first icons that Adobe developed as they were developing the guidelines and the system itself. And these elements then became instrumental in helping our designers all over the world explain the difficult or the complex terms that they were given. Many of these elements came to mean specific things and really were the basis of the language that is developing now. And it is a language. At the heart, many of these icons really clearly describe complex things. These are some of my favorite icons from the last challenge. The difference between a genotype and a phenotype is something that, you know, maybe scientists and enthusiasts know, but is a pretty complex, very subtle thing, but incredibly important, right, in conservation of food. And the designer of these, I think this was Kathleen Foster in Australia, I thought did just a brilliant job differentiating these. I should say that the goal of these icons, and any icon system for that matter, isn't so much to immediately understand something, it's to make something that's easily learnable and rememberable. So while, you know, my mother seeing these two top icons might not get genotype and phenotype, someone that uses those, someone that has a need for them would easily learn and then be able to differentiate them. Biomimicry is another one, colony collapse syndrome. These really express the heart of what these terms mean and the importance of them. Here's an example that emerged during the challenges where the icon for a hand out holding something has become has now taken on the meaning of care or maintenance or management. And so a bird sitting in the hand is bird friendly, a water drop above it becomes water management, fire management, manure management, etc. And this is really the crux of what happens when you have iconographic languages. They start to build their own grammar, and then that grammar is extensible and applicable to other kinds of terms. Here's another example of, or a few examples of some of these things that over and over with use are coming to mean things. So the two hands together have come to mean in this visual language equity. So if you put different things in the hands, it modifies the kind of equity it is. Or in the second row, this idea of ownership of a farm, these two piece elements, the deed element, the farm element, and then replacing the person helps people understand the differences. And when we show you the uses that are already being used, you'll see why it's important to have some of these icons. The last one I like because it's a system that these icons work together with each other to help differentiate the different kinds of cases of where they might be used. I should introduce Ellie here. Ellie is one of our volunteers, one of our very few volunteers. She has done an incredible amount of work. She's a fantastic designer here in San Francisco as well. And she has helped us manage this process, communicating with the judges, communicating with all these designers, uploading designs and refining them, et cetera. We could not have done this without her. And she's going to step us through some of the star design work that we've seen, as well as once we get to the end, we have Viksha here, who is calling in from India, and she is absolutely one of our top star designers, where we feel so grateful to have well, for us, we've discovered her. She's always been a designer out there in the world, but we're so grateful because her work is so sensitively put together and is just stellar. So Ellie, take it away.
Hi, Nathan, thank you. Can you help me scroll the slides while I was talking?
Yeah, just tell me when.
Yeah, of course. So at the launch of the Food Icons, we actively reach out to design communities and institutions to share this opportunity across the globe. So up till now, we have seen more than 750 designers from over 80 countries and regions sign up for our challenges. Food Icons values diversity a lot, and the fact that we welcome designers of different age, gender, ethnicity, and culture really makes this project a true worldwide collaboration. So in the following slides, I'm going to show design works from some of our featured designers who will devote their passion and skills to create these excellent food icons. Next, please. So for example, here we have the Filipa from Portugal, who designed terms like fisher person, farm laborer, rancher, inspector. And next one, please. Alejandra from USA. So she designed a couple of chef, server, butcher, eaters. As you can see, both of these designers are really great at designing icons associated with diverse people elements. Next, we have Liz from Mexico creating icons for culinary and climate change terms. So they are like climate change, climate mitigation, as well as Gen vegetarian. Next, we have Laurent from Belgium designing icons such as genetically modified organisms and dietary guidelines. Next, Li Xing from China, who created icons for animal proteins and other food terms. Next, we have Kathleen, as Nathan mentioned previously. She created some icons that is related to genetics and allergies. So as we can see, some of these designers were assigned to some quite complicated terms, as mentioned before, like phenotype, genotype, but they all managed to develop really unique icons that work as a cohesive set of visual assets for our better food communications. Today, we are also very honored to invite one of these amazing designers, Viksha from India, to talk about her experience and work with food icons. Hi, Viksha.
Hi, Ellie. Hi, everyone. I am an architecture student from India. My name is Viksha Mandela, and I'm curious about the multidisciplinary scopes of architecture. And when I'm not designing spatial experiences, I enjoy making posters and exploring type in terms of typography, posters, and material explorations.
Impressive. So before this project, did you have any design experience with food specifically?
No, this was actually the first time I was interacting with food systems, and I learned that creating a legible and transparent system could contribute to a greater food literacy. And personally, as a consumer, among various shareholders like producers and farmers, as a consumer personally, I have understood and I'm more aware of what I am putting on the table.
Great. So how do you like about this new experience, like compared to the previous experience that you mentioned, like designing posters and other design process?
So this was the first time that I was working remotely with people around the world, and also the kind of impact that it creates around the globe is very impressive, and I'm honored to be part of this project of such a grand scale.
Thank you. So before the start of designing any icons, where did you find any design inspirations? Are there any like imagery, photography, or real life references that you looked into?
So usually when I look for design inspirations, it was in the middle when I was having like a creative block. So in the start of the process, I usually like write down all the terms, and under each term, I write what kind of elements there are that the term must communicate in order to have a holistic approach to that term. So for that creative block, I think I got the inspiration from changing the scene of where I'm sketching. For example, going to another room or just taking a walk outside. Another thing is also interacting with other people who are not designers. So people who are not, aiming to design an icon, they would describe the term in a very different way. So their concepts and how they're approaching and ideating that kind of term in their daily life would be a much better approach to designing the icon, which is used by so many people, not just designers. So that was a better way to for me to approach the design process.
Got it. It's very important to understand your target audience before you actually do the design, right?
Exactly.
So during the process, do you find anything that is very challenging for you to kind of accomplish these kind of icons?
So before starting, I was in the challenge one. I was like, I don't know how to starting from scratch and, brainstorming, having the blue sky ideas. I wasn't really sure how to get started. But once I went through the first challenge to the fifth challenge, I realized that, having a repository, having a library before, with all the selected terms was even more essential to relate the newer terms back to the terms which are already there in the library. So I think relating that again and again and trying to see if the newer terms could be related to another term in the previous deck was also possible. So that would create a much more unified family of icons. So this was the most challenging, but also the most rewarding part of the process.
Great. So some of your icons, I just noticed that a little bit harder to express than the others. Do you have any steps that help you to sketch out these complex ideas and to make them more understandable as the others?
So for example, the second icon in the top row, that is an icon for the buffer strip. So being an architecture student, I've already learned about this in my class. And I realized that having too much information and too much background about the term was also, really hindering, because I was trying to put all the concerned elements into it, but it was getting too abstract. And especially for this icon, it was challenging because for the first and the second round, I realized that, the critique I was getting was like, the first one is better than the second one. So I understood that it was important to not keep the icons more abstract and busy, but rather create a much more minimalistic and simple icon. So for example, for this buffer strip, I remember I was sketching for the last day till the end of the submission round. I was just like, I need to get this term. I was least concerned about this. And this was the term which was getting to me. I was like, how am I not able to express this clearly? So that was the fun part about this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like back and forth. And when you kind of look at the critiques and see where the improvement can be.
Exactly.
Okay, so is there a particular favorite icon here on the slide that you can talk about, and why do you like it so much?
I think it's again the buffer strip. I just said everything that I wanted to for that. But then the reason why I liked it is because it changed my design process. I understood that for this particular, like the previous design projects, I understood that I need to do a little more of research, a little more background study. But for something which is so minimalistic and which needs to be, there should be subtractive elements rather than adding everything into it. I learned a lot from this icon. I think that is why it's my favorite. And also looking at all the icons, this is the most aesthetic and, it looks very unified. So I like it the most.
Your icons are amazingly designed. Can you share with us some tips that will help create successful food icons?
I think you would also agree, Ellie, that as designers, we all have a design process. And for each project, we need to learn, unlearn, and then relearn again how to best fit our process into that particular project. So I think understanding your own design process and understanding how you can perform the best in that particular deadline, so to say, and also what is expected out of that icon. I think that's the most important part about this project, but also having subtractive elements, just trying to keep it more minimalistic and not making it too busy or abstract. So I think that's what I learned from this.
Got it. It's super important to make these icons as a cohesive set so that people can understand them as they see them. So thank you so much for sharing today. I believe that your experience will definitely inspire more emerging designers to help advance our global food system. So I'm going to pass it off to Douglas again to talk about uses for food icons.
Thanks, Ellie. What I'm going to do now is show some examples of what happens when you actually put these ideas into practice and actually build systems that I would even say depend upon these icons. I'd like to know, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So Foodicons began as an accelerator, as I mentioned. The Lexicon, which is a California-based NGO, has an accelerator program for good ideas that brings together people from all over the world to tackle challenges that are facing food systems. Green, Brown, Blue is an accelerator that's funded in part by Food at Google. It's with their direct support that this is possible. The accelerators cover a variety of areas, and everything from regenerative agriculture to aquaculture. And what the groups immediately found was there was immediate application, even as the design challenge was unfolding, which still isn't even done. They already started to grab them and integrate them. And I'm going to give you just a couple of very quick examples. The first is for the food and packaging space. There is one of our accelerators created the first scorecard that actually explains all the chemicals of concern that are in food packaging. And what they really needed was they needed icons to explain that. So when they built their scorecard, which explains what's in food packaging, the icons are everywhere. The icons are critical for understanding, without the need for further language, what it is you're looking at. And it was a very powerful tool, not only from a design standpoint, but from a literacy standpoint for educating people. One of the things that I find the most interesting about Foodicons is that people don't realize that it's not an art project. It's a global literacy project. It's how do you create people, how do you give people greater fluency and greater literacy so they can actually understand and embrace a food system that's more in line with their values. Because really, at the end of the day, the problem that we have is that our food systems are blind. We have no idea who grows our food, where it's grown, or how it's grown, or how it arrives at our door. That blindness in our supply chains is partially because we don't have the literacy even to know how to ask the questions of what's in our food system. This was a core challenge that confronted our other accelerator that wanted to bring more agribiodiversity into supply chains. So what this group said is, we need to figure out a way to understand from a supplier or a grower what they're doing so we can support those growers who are more in line with our values. Because we have missions as companies that we want to support. We have values as purchasers that we want to see validated through the purchases we make. But how can we do that if we have no idea what's being sourced? So what we did was we created a tool in one of our accelerators that's now open to the public, and I'll put the links in afterwards, where you can literally take these 10 principles of agribiodiversity and audit your own supply chain so you can actually have a better opportunity to support things that are in line with your values. And as you can see, the icons from Foodicons were critical from the very outset. You select an ingredient, you say where you're based and where you're sourcing from, and then the icons walk you through each of the 10 principles, and then you literally use the tool to actually look at every principle and then see what practices are being supported by your purchases. For regenerative agriculture, we were confronted by, again, the same problem. People know what certifications are, organic or this or that, but what's really inside of that definition of organic? In many cases, people just don't know. So what we did was we created really the first place-based model for regenerative agriculture that will ultimately have a standard around it, Regen 1. And then we went to farmers and ranchers and we literally said to them, hey, you know, how can you explain to us what you're doing and how we can support that? And a tool, an onboarding tool is built that literally asks producers questions about what they're doing and then turns that into an iconographic system. So we took the Foodicons for regenerative agriculture that were created, of which there's over 150, that explains a lot of really, core concepts. And then we said, how can we use all of these icons to actually give you a sense of what's happening on a farm? Not something that just says organic and then we're done. What's really happening on the farm? Because if we can actually educate a consumer or a purchaser on the range of things a regenerative farmer can do, they're going to be a much higher likelihood that they're going to support them. So as a result of that, you get a producer that suddenly looks like that. This is a digital fingerprint that explains a farmer. This is a farmer that went through a process, answered a series of questions that capture what they were doing. And you can now, as a consumer or as a purchaser, actually go over all of these different principles and practices that connect to that producer. And now what you're doing is you're creating greater literacy with a consumer, greater literacy with a purchaser. A crazy data point, Robin, I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm always told is that the average time that a purchaser spends in a supply chain as a purchaser is 2 years. So if that's the case, where are they getting the education that can help them to make purchasing decisions that are aligned with their values or that can support the mission of their company? Sure, they might be able to buy something for the cheapest price. They might be able to buy something just because it's readily available. But how are they really going to change the food system that is make it more in line with what their values and aspirations are as people, what we all want from a food system, something that mirrors what our values are as individuals? We can't have that if the supply chain's blind. We can't have that if we have no understanding of what somebody's trying to do. And we also can't reward them for all of the ecosystem services that they're providing. This is a starting point. It will be improved upon, obviously. This goes live actually just in a couple of weeks. But what's interesting about this journey that we're now on is we've created a system that is going to raise global literacy around how food is made so that people can finally support a food system that's in line with their values. And so across the board, whether it's in food packaging, whether it's in agrobiodiversity, whether it's in regenerative agriculture, whether it's in food loss and food waste, we're building a global system, but we're not doing it on our own. This is a starting point. This is the stone in the famous stone soup. What's really going to make this become something that's universally used and accepted is going to be if people join and build upon it and maintain it and put it into use. I find it amazing that the 3 examples I gave you came together even before the challenge was done. As Nathan pointed out, the challenge is a few months away from even finishing, but people are already starting to use these icons. And so, I don't know, for designers who have participated to see this, it must be very rewarding to see your work already being used by people all over the world. Challenge isn't even done yet, right? Imagine when it's actually officially launched as a set. Imagine what happens when we begin to build on it. Then it's going to be extraordinarily powerful. And so I'm very, Jim, I have to say, Nathan and I are very gratified. And to be honest, super surprised that this has happened so fast. As Nathan and I said, we've only launched this in January of this year. I also don't want to forget to mention how critical Ellie's been along the way. It's extraordinary the amount of effort that Ellie's put in, and so many members of the team. But really, I have to say, Ellie, Nathan and I are blessed that you came across this project and put so much energy and effort in it. And you're in all of these icons. So I want to really thank you for that journey that you've taken with us.
And Regina too, who's not with us today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Jim, we're excited. We're excited by where we've gone. Excited to know that we're just at the outset, and excited to see what's going to come and what I think Chloe's going to speak to next.
Yeah, if I could
Yeah.
just follow that up really quickly. Sorry, Jim.
Go ahead.
Douglas,
go
you
ahead.
said something really important, and that is, this is just the beginning. And I want to stress, and Maria Luella-Tinio had a great question in the Q&A. This is the beginning. We've done a bunch of work to try to make these as good as we can, but the next step is to put them out there in the world and see how they work and where they're not clear and where they work well. And we know that this is going to be the beginning of an evolutionary process. We expect these icons to evolve over time and get better. That's part of the design process. We've made them as good as we can for now, and we're launching them out into the world. But we know that over time, they'll probably turn into, color, they'll be more detailed, they'll look more and more like emoticons, and we welcome that. But there's only so much, our food experts and our design council can anticipate for a system that's going to be used literally all over the world and reflect so many people's cultures and understandings and backgrounds. So I just wanted to stress that this is just the beginning.
Thank you, Douglas, Nathan, Ellie, Viksha. All of these coming together is so exciting. As someone who spent some time teaching in university, I think those icons can encapsulate certain concepts just quickly for students to see and also communicate. And then, in the NGO space, in the development space, we can also communicate lots of, advocacies, concepts, designs, and just quickly in a snapshot of an icon. And of course, definitely raise awareness and the consumer education on how food is being produced. It's really, really exciting. So now, we've gone through the food systems concepts going behind these, the design process, the use of these icons, and now we're going to look at how do we continue forward with that. And I know if you look at the trend of different movements, it's always been around communities, building a community around it. And I feel like this is something where we're going towards. And so let me call on Chloe, right, to go and explain how we're building that community around this. So I'm handing it over to you, Chloe. You have the floor.
Thank you, Jim. So since Foodicons is the shared global language, our goal is that everyone here will have a chance to contribute to it and add to it, so everyone is able to use it as best as they can. So as we move forward with this partnership between the World Food Forum and Foodicons, we'd like to make an open call to invite members of the World Food Forum to join. So first, we have an online community where everyone can post articles and collaborate with each other and just discuss these ideas that are all floating around, and we all have the shared cause. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, more specifically for Foodicons, we have a number of ways that people can get involved. And I will also share a link to a Google form where you can share contact information with us and also let us know how you'd be interested in working with Foodicons. So a few things that we have is we will need an executive committee for Foodicons. So you'll provide oversight to make sure things are moving forward. And each year we're planning on adding new terms. So you'll kind of be helping organize that design process that that Nathan and Douglas and Ellie have had such a huge role in so far. Also, we're making a call for food systems experts to suggest needs for new icons and to help explain these concepts and terms and provide expert feedback on the designs throughout the review process, since as you saw earlier, it's an iterative process. So making sure we get that feedback step by step. Also, we're obviously looking for more designers to join our designer collective and to join the team of designers creating new Foodicons. And finally, NGOs, government agencies, startups, and food companies to continue creating partnerships to showcase ways that Foodicons can be used for marketing and packaging, like some of the ways that Douglas shared earlier. And so again, to drop a link to a Google form in the chat. And then it looks like Douglas just put in a link for the online community. So we welcome everyone to join, to get involved, and we would love to collaborate with you all. And I'll send it back over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Chloe. And this is really exciting. In fact, when Douglas and Alberto promoted the launch yesterday during the Youth Action Assembly, I went on ahead onto the Google form. Even if I was moderating this, I was like, I'm gonna jump in on that Google form already. I put my name already in there. So go ahead, for those listening in, go into that link and join the community, because this is something that we're all going to be sharing and we're all going to be benefiting from. And I think it's something that's really crucial for all of us, that the food systems becomes more transparent. It becomes us, and it becomes like a manifestation of who we are, who our cultures are, and the kind of food that we produce and we consume. This is really, really exciting. And so I'm gonna ask Douglas or Nathan if you have anything else to add to that, or anything last messages you want to share with everybody here.
Yeah, I'll let Douglas have the last word, but I just
Okay.
wanted to reiterate that this is an ongoing process. We when the collection, you can go to download all of the icons to date from the Foodicons website. In another week or so, you'll be able to go to the Noun project and see and download most of them. We've covered in depth just a fraction of the categories that we know are going to be needed, and we're working on the rest. So we have a good set of icons for climate change and farming and regenerative agriculture and agrobiodiversity, soil and nutrition, even alternative proteins right now. But we are hard at work right now with a huge set for aquaculture, food loss, food waste, packaging, and maybe most importantly, or one of the most importantly, supply chain, supply cycle, because we have built this system, and it may not be clear, but we have built this systems first for the people who work in the food systems, not for consumers. Many people see the allergens and the diet icons, et cetera, and think consumer uses. And by all means, we expect these to show up in front of eaters. But really what we're trying to do is create a language for people in the industries around food to better communicate with each other. And so we have a good long list of categories and icons and terms that we're still working on. So by all means, if you see holes, icons that are missing, terms that are missing for your work, please get in touch. Perhaps they're already in development, but very likely they may not be. And we would, we're here to serve those, those actors in the food system. So we need input into what you need to do your work.
Thanks. That's really exciting. Thanks, Nathan. Douglas, over to you.
Well, I think the reason why we're really excited with the opportunity to collaborate with the World Food Forum is that we're creating a universal language, and the custodians of that language, the people that put it into use, that activate it, are going to be the members of your community. And so what we're doing, Jim, as Chloe, I think, really clearly articulated, is we're inviting you to join with us to form four core areas: an executive committee of governance. How do we manage this language? The importance of building that out and controlling how it's used and leading to its greater dissemination. How do we bring designers from all over the world together to continue to add to it? How do we bring food system experts in to help decide what areas and what core thematic buckets need to be added? Because it's crazy, Jim. We added 100 and something terms for aquaculture. Not enough, but enough to get started, right? That's why we're so excited to bring this to this group, right? Regenerative agriculture, I don't know, Nathan, 125 terms? Turns out not enough, right?
Oh yeah, no, we're over 150 for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so people are going to continue to add to this language, right? And then there's going to be the need to translate it into different languages as well. So there's a tremendous opportunity here. The analogy I like to use, Jim, is that the Oxford English Dictionary puts out their word of the year every year, and everybody, writes about it. The World Food Forum can start putting out the Foodicon term of the year and the icon of the year. And journalists were right about that. These are the types of things that we really think will be a very powerful asset for your community, a tool, a uniting initiative for your community that you'll be able to build upon. And what Nathan and I and Chloe and Ellie and our team are really excited to do is collaborate with you on building that out and taking it to the next level. So that's the exciting thing for us, and that's why we're so happy to be here today.
Wow, amazing. This has been an absolute adrenaline rush for people who are wanting to communicate about their passion in food systems and agriculture and food systems, aquaculture, marine resources, and natural resources. I think this is just the way forward, and it's just, we've only scratched the surface. This is basically just tip of the iceberg, really. I mean, looking at the details of like production systems going to, soil conservation, electroconductivity, pH, relative humidity, all of these things coming together. These are elements that could be well explained by an icon, and definitely something that we need to embrace across food systems, across cultures. And it's really exciting to see that. As someone who is an art enthusiast to some point, to some degree, I do digital sketching. When I saw this, I was just excited really to see that there was this kind of initiative. So for those who are listening in, like, this is something you really have to tune in. This is something you don't want to miss. This is something you don't want to let go of and just listen to. This is a community you could be part of. And so going back again to that Google form that Chloe just shared, make sure to go in, put your name in there, select a group you want to be part of the community. Really encourage you to go in and that. And this is something that all of us can really benefit from, and all of us can put in something together. So with that, this has been an exciting launch, really. And I know Maximo is here, Mateo is here from the World Food Forum. We're really excited to see how this can also move forward with that suggestion quickly of Douglas, something that could be embraced by young people, by the Youth Action Assembly. Absolutely, something can be done. And this is just the beginning of a beautiful journey, as Mateo always says in the other sessions. So again, thank you for joining this conversation, this launch. And this is not the end. This is just the beginning. So go ahead, sign up in that form, go to that community, be part of it, and let's work together to build this universal visual language.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Douglas, Nathan, Robin, Romano, Ellie, Chloe, Maximo, and Mateo for the support. And of course, Viksha and the rest of the designers. Absolutely great work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.